morning to everyone. So my name is Maria, and I'm working at Nestle, at the Nestle IT Innovation Department, in a very specific team that it's called Conversational Artificial Intelligence. And today I'm going to give you some information and context on what we have been doing on chatbots, some learning, some use cases, and then going into how are we tackling the performance, the chatbot performance through intent detection. So the agenda is going to be this one, more or less. First of all, a little bit of Nestle. Why are we doing that? It's not only chocolate, it's not only coffee. And then going to the chatbot performance itself. So yes, Nespresso, Nescafé Dolce Gusto, we're also doing caja roja, chocolate, but we are also investing on digital. It might be new for you because actually the first hub in Barcelona was created in 2016. Operation started in March, so it's pretty new. However, we are a pretty big team, around 200 digital experts with from several nationalities. So the idea of that, as a bit of context, is each market, which is each country, had their own technical agency, a local one. So if, let's say, Nestlé Infant Nutrition in Mexico wanted to develop an app or a website, they would go locally with their own technical agency without sharing any knowledge, without sharing any learnings, and doing that locally. So the idea that came from the management was to build this hub that basically provides digital knowledge and to all Nestle markets, basically to reduce cost efficiency and share knowledge. So basically, if someone wants to build an application, a mobile application or a website, they go to this Barcelona hub. They have selected some technologies that they have to use, so that then it's easier, it's faster, the time to market, and also it's cheaper at the same time. So there's a pretty strong diversity in terms of gender balance, and the average age is 32. And inside this global digital hub, we have the conversational artificial intelligence. Here you can see some numbers. We have been working on chatbots and voice skills since 2016. So we have built more than 20 chatbots. Some of these are live, some of these are decommissioned because they didn't work, obviously. But from there, we gather learnings. We also assess several vendors because at the end of the day, we need to work globally. So we're working with Vietnam, with Philippines, with Mexico, with the US. So it doesn't always work for the US and for Mexico or for Vietnam. So we need to actually look globally. And then we have to cover as many languages and consumer channels as possible. So some learnings that we've gathered, you can see in the slide, but as an overview, we realized that the strong technology is not good enough. So a strong natural language processing engine is not only the only thing that you need, but you also need a good conversation design. Without that, if you want to actually reach this natural conversation with your consumer, you need UX designers to help you within that stage. Also, a good NLP that is actually doing a proper intent classification is recommended, and that's why we also look to Google's or Microsoft because of their roadmaps. But sometimes those doesn't cover the languages that we needed, so we have to go local. We also realized that some of these platforms just provide very basic analytics. So we had to go to other sources, such as Facebook, if the chatbot was on Facebook, Google Analytics, and then kind of understand those metrics and come up with an overview of those. So we are actually investing on an analytics strategy as well for chatbots. We are merging those sources, analytics, and visualizing that on a unique platform, so we don't have to jump from one to another one. Another thing that we realized is languages. So we had to go to look into local NLP providers to see, for instance, China and Japan. They're pretty advanced. And we had some issues with Dialogflow, which is Google's NLP, or with Louis. So we had to actually compare with other ones, and the consumer channels. So we cannot only focus on Facebook and website, which is the main ones for chatbots, but we also had to go to WeChat or Kik or Line, because we actually are serving Nestle brands globally. And the last thing is that Nestle is pretty complex. So Integrating with Nestle systems is not an easy thing. We have our own CRM systems, delivery providers, so we learned from that, and we actually decided to implement our own strategy or solution, let's say. So the first thing we did is basically, because we want natural conversations, we don't want guided conversations, as you might have been experiencing with some chatbots, we build the conversation as a graph, which basically means that I can start with a chatbot talking about how to set up a machine for an espresso, but then I realized that I actually want to buy some coffee capsules, or that I want to find the nearest store to buy those capsules. So instead of starting again from the main menu, I can jump within flows. I can gather that context, store that, and then anticipate to what the consumer might want in the future. Then, because we don't want to just stay with one NLP, mainly because of language reasons, we want to be NLP agnostic. We designed that modularized and reused architecture to build service on top of that as well. And then we also build the Power BI dashboard that actually combines several metrics. We basically wanted to experiment and with the learnings that we gathered, a new approach, more natural, more reusable, and at the end, we are building shared libraries. So basically, if a market or if a country just wants to use the Power BI dashboard without the Grapho itself, they can use it. If they want to use an integration with a Nestle system, they can use it. They can use all our solution. They can just use a part of it. Some use cases. So with this new approach, we actually have a global chatbot for Nescafé Dolce Gusto on Facebook Messenger. What means a global chatbot? So we have a unique Facebook page for all Nescafé Dolce Gusto markets. So I want to highlight here the complexity of first understanding language. So if someone from China, Nescafé Dolce Gusto comes, or from Vietnam, or from Mexico, we need to understand the language, the intention, and that's not easy because we don't have separate chatbots that we can say this one is in Spanish, this one is in English. And then the complexity of integrating with local CRM systems. So this chatbot is basically helping you through different complex dialogues. So not only FAQs, but it's actually product browsing, how to set up a machine troubleshooting, but for instance, some very specific things that we identify, such as my drink is not hot enough, so can you help me? It's not my machine is not working, which can be like a wide range of use cases. So the thing here is the chatbot can help you with all these things that you can see there. However, if it's not able to help you, it will hand over to a live agent. So basically, within the same conversation, we integrated with Salesforce, which is our CRM system. An agent comes within the conversation. It helps the consumer. Once it's finished, we create a case. Basically, we stored all the conversation from the consumer, details, name, email, and so on. And then the consumer can keep chatting with the bot, which is called Melody in this case. You can see some metrics here. This bot has been just live for a month without promotion, so very basic. But it actually works pretty well. Going back to the modularized architecture I was mentioning before. So for this specific one, we are building a machine learning model to actually identify coffee machines. So there is a specific flow within this bot that is asking the consumer what kind of machine do you have in order to solve the problem. What happens is that consumers sometimes don't know the machine model. So you basically take a picture of your machine, and then we identify for you the machine model, and then you can keep chatting with the bot. So that's something that we are experimenting. And then another thing is a spam classifier. So basically, once when the consumer is chatting with the bot, we open a case on our CRM system with all the information. Sometimes they just, let's say, chat, a small chat, or annoy the bot, such as, how are you, how's the weather, I love you, you're not being helpful. These would be kind of conversations that we would mark as a spam. So basically, we would not send this to our CRM system because we don't want to store that information. That's something as well that we're working on. Another use case is Nestlé Infant Nutrition. That was specific for Philippines. Basically, it helps women who are pregnant throughout the pregnancy stage. solving very basic FAQs, but as well nutritional advice and other kind of questions that they might have. And also the handover to the live agent exists. So as you can see, most of our use cases are coming from the call centers team, because what they want to do is to automate content to free up time from the agents and be there 24/7. And this is how chatbots can help our markets and our brands. Okay, that was very interesting, an overview, but how are we actually working on improving that chatbot performance? Or what are we doing that it might be interesting for you? The first thing is we want to talk with consumers, with humans, right? So we have to be as natural as possible. We have to understand the consumer's language, and we have to understand their needs. So the first thing we need to do is be good at the basics. Like, we need to understand these conversations and identify the main intention. So the main thing that the user wants to talk or to us. Sometimes it's very basic, it's very easy in the sense that they type keywords. But sometimes they randomly type a very big paragraph with several things, and you need to identify the main intention behind that. How can we do that, or what do we need? So we need a very accurate NLP engine that helps us to understand this main intention. And then what we need to actually do, or how can we achieve that, is once we are designing the bot dialogue, so let's say on the pre-go live phase, where we design all the conversation, we should have identified the intentions and then the utterances associated to these intents. Once we have that, since the NLP is a classifier, as any good classifier, we need a very huge training set. And the more data we have, the better the accuracy will be, right? So we need to work on that as well together with the UX designers, and to not just rely on 2 or 3 sentences that might help me to understand this intention. And with this information, what we need to do is, or what we're doing right now, is training this NLP. What happens if it doesn't work, if we actually don't invest time on doing that? I'm pretty sure you've seen very robotic conversations, such as you have to click on buttons, or the user is typing things and the bot is not understanding those. That's something that is currently happening a lot, and brands do not actually focus, or they don't actually think it's important enough. If it's good that the consumers come to us once, but it's even better if they come twice, right? So one thing we need to focus on is on this natural conversation instead of a guided dialogue. What do I mean by that? So we can have a very complex use case and dialogue, which is, this one is Nescafé Dolce Gusto. I can either let the user go within the last part of the dialogue that they want. So for instance, my machine is leaking and I need help. Or I can tell them, okay, you have to go first to the first button, then I will ask you to select the other one, and so on. And finally, after 10 minutes of interaction, when the consumer is very angry, I deliver the appropriate response. So that's something we should invest on, and we are actually looking at. So not only telling the consumers you have to start from the scratch, or you have to start from the main menu, but actually going directly to the main point. The second point is about the analysis and visualization of that performance. So most of the technologies out there, what they do is actually provide you a dashboard, which they say, I've classified intents, or these haven't been actually classified properly. So that is something that we have, yes, but it's something that is not helping us to identify if these have been properly classified. So that's something that we actually are working on as well. I'm pretty sure you have identified that platform. It's Chatbot from Google. Basically, the challenge here is the correct classification. So how do we know that this utterance was classified to the appropriate intent, and not is just going to another one, right? So this platform is giving us some extra layers where we can actually see where consumers are dropping off from the conversation. So we start with the welcome, and then we have the main intents, and then we keep chatting and we keep discovering. So probably if a lot of users drop off after one intent, it might be that we didn't actually trained that intent with appropriate utterances, or that we didn't understand the consumer very well. And we need to work there. And with platforms such as Dialogflow or any other ones, we cannot see that in the very beginning. We have to use other ones. Still, there's a lot of work to do, very important work to do on these false positives, and it's something that most of the companies are not working on right now. Other things I would like to mention and that we're doing is some features that you might want to use for your chatbot, such as the A/B testing. So for instance, we can select an NLP. It can be Louis, it can be Dialogflow, the one that you prefer the most. And then let's say we have a new flow or a new feature that we want to test with our consumers. The thing that we can do is actually present. So have one with this feature or this new flow with the new intents and new utterances, another one that doesn't include that. And then present that to the consumers and see which one is performing better. And then we select this NLP. And then we work on that, we train it, and then we launch it. That's something that we work with Nespresso, Nescafé Dolce Gusto, so the main brands, along with Purina in the US. And it's working pretty well so far. So I would encourage you to use that. And another feature is the user feedback. What do I mean by that? So what I can do is either go to the chatbot training tab or the conversations tab and review all the conversations manually. And I can say, for instance, this conversation was correctly understood by the bot, therefore the answer was actually the appropriate one. Or I can ask the consumer to tell me that, because sometimes it's even better and more accurate. So we can include the question after the chatbot conversation and ask the consumer, did I help you correctly with the question you had, yes or no? So you can do that at the very end of the conversation, or you can do that after some specific intents to do some kind of training on just those ones. So let's say you have two very close, two very similar, and you want to actually see if those are performing good. So then you would deliver the question there. And then if you want, you can also add a metric to your dashboard. So you can either add this on your bot performance metric, you can add a separate one. So the one that you can see on the screen is something that we are doing for NDG, Nescafé Dolce Gusto. So we're actually looking if consumers are happy or not with the chatbot performance. And then we are investigating why. Because sometimes people just click randomly yes, no, to just keep chatting with the bot. So another thing that we can do is tell me why you weren't happy, just to see if it's that they were not happy or they just selected the button randomly. Then another thing that you can do to improve your chatbot is what we call artificial utterances. So I'm pretty sure that if I ask you right now, how would you ask for coffee to a chatbot, we can come up with 20 different ways of saying that. There's no just one unique way. So what we can use is these natural language generation services, where we give one sentence and they automatically create hundreds of sentences of different ways to say that. So you can say, I want to buy coffee, I just ran out of my Nespresso or espresso, I need to go to the shop and buy some capsules. There are several ways, and we need to identify all possible ones, or at least I would say 70% of the possible ones before going live. Otherwise, we're going to fail at the basics. So this is an example that we use for Nespresso. So we actually used a company to generate around 200 of several sentences on how to descale a machine. It can be useful. Dialogflow is very good, but we also wanted to tackle this specific problem. Or basically, if I need coffee, there are several ways of saying that. Some of these are already covered by us and the market, and you can come up with these ideas, but some of the times you don't know. Also, it's very specific to the market. So what we usually do is, once we have these sentences, we ask the market. So for instance, English, you can say there's just one way to ask for things. But if you go to the UK, they will say, oh no, the US are going to say it in a completely different way. So then you need time from the market there as well to customize to the tone of voice or to the brand voice as well, these sentences. And why did we use that for Nespresso and Nescafé Dolce Gusto? Basically because we wanted to save time. Instead of asking the market to type those sentences manually, we did that first step for them, and then they just tweaked and adapted the phrase, the utterance. And then because we wanted to increase effectiveness on the training and performance phase, so we wanted to accelerate this time to market launch. And then the last thing is the topic extraction. So there's one way to identify how chatbots didn't understand the consumers, and this is going to the default intent, right? You go there, you see all the conversations or route answers that weren't understood by the bot. You can do that manually. I'm pretty sure you don't want to do that manually because it's very tedious, it's very tiring. So what we can do is extract the text, clean the text and extract some keywords. So basically from data set, then you would identify the main topics that the consumers are talking about. And from here, you can understand either if you didn't cover use case, or you did, but you didn't actually work on detecting the intention behind that. So we did that for Purina in the UK. They gave us an Excel with all the conversations from the call centers, and we wanted to see if what the market asked us to do for a chatbot was what the consumers were asking for. Because sometimes the brand comes and says, I want a chatbot that delivers FAQs and product browsing, and sometimes consumers don't want that. They just want another kind of FAQs, that they want another specific flows. So we basically identified the main keywords, and we worked together with the UX team to design those flows and present that to the market and to the brand. So as I said, this can help me to discover if I need to refine some intents, refine some flows, add new features. So for instance, the one for the machine model, we didn't actually include it on the release 1, but then we saw that a lot of people were saying, I don't know, my machine type, my machine model. So that was something that we worked on after the go live, so kind of enhancing the bot as well. That's everything from my side. I don't know if you have any questions. I'm here to answer some of those, if I can.
Thank you for your great speech. It was a pleasure to hear some really useful things. In our company, we have not a lot of experience with chatbots, and one of the problems is that creating chatbots require a lot of manual work with these dialog graphs. I mean sequences of intents, bot reaction, and this sequence. How do you organize creation of these graphs? You have some separate team which go deep into domain and create these graphs, or what? Thank you.
Okay. So we basically, we don't develop in-house. We don't actually create the flows in-house at Nestle. We externalize that. So we work first with the creative team that works with the brand to identify the main, let's say, topics that they need to talk about, and they present a decision tree, right? And then this together with the technical team, which is obvious, usually it's the same company, they come up with this first, let's say, training set, and then they have the market validating that. So it's kind of 3 teams working on that, and what we do is basically as subject matter experts, we kind of give some guidance on that, but in-house, we don't develop this.
You explain for a team how to use, for example, some specific markup and make these dialogues, right? Yeah. But it's not a developer work, right?
No, it's a combination of several, actually.
Combination. I see. Thank you.
Hello. So, yeah, thanks for the talk. Have you considered or tried, instead of a chatbot as interface where people write, providing an interface where people select or type what are the issues, and so because we have tried that at Delivery Hero, and we saw that it's working better, that other approach in which instead of asking the customer what do you want, if you just provide I want a coffee, and then you allow people to say or click I want a coffee, we have seen at least for us that is more efficient way for customers to say what they want.
So you basically have there the answers, and the consumer clicks on that.
With different flows, and also we have created like the flow of the conversation, but instead of identifying by the customers writing what they want, we provide them the flow, and then we.
So
have you tried that or considered it?
Yeah, we did that in the very initial stage. So in 2016, when we launched the first chatbot, they were very guided, but we also gave the option as for free text to the consumers, because even internally, when we were developing the chatbot, let's say my client is not the consumer, it's Nespresso. Okay, so basically I build the bot for them. If I present them a chatbot that is just guided one, they will basically say that they don't want it, because they will be the first testers and they want to chat with the bot. So we did that for promotions, basically. For promotions, it works pretty well, because usually they are temporary. So for Christmas or, I don't know, Black Friday, and it's a very limited scope, right? So you say, I can only help you with promotions on ABC, and then this is what the bot can do, and I'm actually telling you that this is what I can do. So don't ask me anything else. And it works better, but when you are giving a lot of, let's say, products or a lot of options to the user, they prefer to do that as free text, at least from what we've seen so far. But it might be a good option as well, and we can investigate that further.
Yeah, also another question, are you measuring like the bounce rate? Because I didn't see it on the slides.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I just put there, actually I didn't put any screenshot from our Power BI dashboard that was from another, but yeah, we have 3 tabs and we have the bounce rate as well, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was thinking together with the chatbot and with some most recent technology development and also some of the real life experience. For example, if I go to a website, I saw some chatbots trying to talk to me, I just ignore it. Because that does not sound like human. This is machine, I know it. But if you ask me to call somebody, to call the service lady or service man, it's good. If there's an actual person who I want to type to, it's also good. I mean, if I ask myself why I'm not really willing to talk to this bot, I know it's dead. I'm not willing to talk to him or that machine. But if I ask myself under what kind of circumstances I can talk to this thing, if this thing can speak. So I'm thinking, if the first time when there's a chance for greetings, this bot can say, hi, I'm whom, right? I would like to serve you something. Do you have any questions for me? So this thing can probably already increase user experience. Makes me feel this sounds more like a human. I have more intention talking to this thing, even though it can be annoying in the beginning. I'm just thinking. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the smart speakers. If there could be some connections to smart speakers like Google Home Echo, so this could make together with your development there with speech, at least for human, it sounds more natural to speak. For example, when I'm cooking in the kitchen, or I'm doing something else, I could speak at the same time. For example, I'm driving, I could speak at the same time, but I cannot actually typing at the same time.
No, yeah, these are very good questions. Yeah.
So the third thing is that maybe with the VR, AR thing, that can virtualize a lady or a man talking in front of me. And then it makes me feel more like that's a human instead of a machine, a dead machine talking to me. So that may make your chatbot more useful. So that's some of my personal feeling there.
Okay. So just very briefly, so regarding AR, we haven't done anything yet. We are just doing some POCs, but anything live. Regarding smart speakers, that's very interesting because we had the use case for recipes, as you mentioned. So you have a chatbot for recipes in Mexico where you can actually, while you're waiting, I don't know, doctors or just going to work or going back home, you can look for recipes depending on your cooking level of expertise. If you are cooking for 2 or 3 people, and then allergies, and then it selects you or it presents you a set of recipes. Then what it does is the shopping list. So you go to the supermarket, and then once you get home, if you have an Echo Show, it drives you or it walks you throughout the recipe steps. So basically, you're cooking hands-free. You don't have to use the chatbot. You use the Echo Show to go through that recipe. So that's a very interesting use case as well, the one that you mentioned. But I agree that usually once you build either a chatbot or a voice skill, you need to make sure that you present what the bot can do, first to manage expectations, and then to sound as natural as possible. However, I think we're getting there. It's very difficult to actually sound very, very natural and being able to understand everything at the first glance.
So I actually had a question about your performance metrics. So in lieu of asking customers for direct feedback of whether the conversation was helpful, what are some indirect ways you've looked at that? So how you've looked at whether the chatbot was performing well. So you mentioned asking customers directly if it was helpful. So if you're not able to collect that data, what are you using to gauge that?
So sometimes if we have the email, because they have shared it, we can go back and ask what didn't work. Right now, I agree, if we don't ask the reason, I mean, there's kind of a nonsense, right? But sometimes it helps us to understand if it's a pattern that is similar, maybe we're not capturing the intent correctly. So we need to work on the utterances maybe on that.
And then I have a similar question, especially when you're testing two different models, how do you decide which model to move forward with?
That's a good question. Let me think. So usually it's our AI architect who is sitting there, but I'm not going to make him reply on that because he's going to kill me. But basically, we rely on them to tell us which works better. But usually it's basically the way. So if we need to follow a lot of steps to get somewhere, usually it doesn't work because consumers want it right away. That's one thing that we measure. And then as well, other things that maybe you can chat to Enrique, because I don't think I have all the context there. Sorry about that.